Welcome back to Permission Slip Granted. The body mass index. It sounds official, right? It's stamped on medical charts, wellness apps, and insurance forms across the country. But here's the truth. BMI was never designed to assess individual health. In this myth-busting episode of Permission Slip Granted, we bring together lived experience, cultural awareness, and professional insight, including Kristen's background in dietetics, to break down the racist, outdated, and deeply flawed roots of BMI and why it's still being used today. We unpack how BMI has been weaponized against women, fat folks, neurodivergent bodies, and people of color. We explore how medical professionals still prioritize the number over real, individualized care, and how that contributes to shame, gaslighting, and systemic harm. This episode is a call to question, unlearn, and reclaim body autonomy. Whether you've been dismissed in a doctor's office or internalized messages about your size, this one's for you.
Welcome back to Permission Slip Granted. I'm going to say I'm excited to talk about BMI. We really want to go over and just open up this topic and just let you guys know that you are not your BMI. Today, we're going to be unpacking what it is, some of the common beliefs, the harm that it is causing our mental thoughts, and why it's still used today. I mean, come on, guys, we need to move on from this already, right?
Agreed.
And
1000%.
Yes. And what we should look at instead of the BMI for actual health markers. And we want to go over a little bit of how do we break up with BMI if you're somebody who's struggling with that number. So Kylie, I absolutely love you and your history. And if you could just give us a quick synopsis on what this freaking BMI is and where it came from.
Absolutely. I love that you put quick in there because she knows that I could go down the ADHD autistic rabbit hole of hyperfixation. So, okay, I promise I will keep it relatively quick. So where it came from was a Belgian mathematician. And let's just pause there for a minute because it wasn't a fucking doctor.
He wasn't in nutrition or anything like that.
There's no background. Mathematician, okay? And it was in the 1830s. So if science has come so far in the last, let's just say 30 years, imagine from the 1830s, okay? So it was designed to study white European men. So a very specific, narrow focus. And it was never meant to diagnose individuals. But, in the 1900s, as they were trying to, in the 1950s, we saw the first wave of thin bodies and diet pills, and all of the women were having this pressure of having to be a certain way. And it was in this time frame that people were like, well, how do we measure it? Oh, let's take this random fucked up thing from the 1830s, and this is how we're going to measure health for people. And so there's that aspect of patriarchy because it was not about women's bodies. Part about racism because it wasn't about anybody except European white people. So there's a lot of, messed up pieces in the history of the BMI.
Yeah, thank you for that. And for those of you who might not know BMI, it's just your body mass index, and it's a quick tool that they've used for centuries to assess risk, your health risk, right? And it's a number that I've been shocked by sometimes going into the doctor's office, and I'm sure everybody has had a BMI and they're like, wait, I don't really agree with that.
Yeah.
Right. And even me being in the profession, I have to really emphasize here that you need to be an advocate for yourself. Okay. And find a practitioner who aligns their values with your values, because I can say that when I was in school and I was being trained, yes, we were looking at those BMI health factors because it is a quick assessment. But we also have to have this gift of discernment when you're a practitioner. And sometimes, things get skewed. And sometimes you are just a piece of paper that's being pushed through and people can't see you in front of them. And in the medical side of things, I can say when I'm looking at a medical chart and you look at something and then you see that BMI in the medical chart, you're like, okay. And then you walk in the room and you're like, okay, this person looks pretty healthy, so you have to use that discernment. So, and I want to encourage listeners to not look at the paper or the number or the chart or whatever it is, because you know you best, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I want to lead into what your perceptions are and the common beliefs around BMI. I want to open us up there just so we can, because this is a myth busting episode. That's hard to say. What do you guys, what are some common beliefs that you guys feel is out there, or even your own common beliefs that you've struggled with?
Sydney, do you want to start? Because I've already kind of talked a little bit today.
Really love, Kylie, that you shared all of those little nuggets of information, because I had no idea where that came from. So thank you for that mind nugget there. Because I get my annual done every year at my doctor, my family doctor, and he takes a lot of extensive blood work, and they weigh me, and they predict my BMI, and it does body mass index, tell me how much fat. They put me in a range. It's a wide range, right? Of you're obese if you're over this weight, for this height, for your age, a female. So, and I use that as to kind of gauge it as like a Myers-Briggs personality test, right? It doesn't define you, but it's a tool to help you navigate your own body and your own health. That's how I view it. But I've never really dug into it. I've recovering from perfectionism and body dysmorphia as a young uh, teen, and being a dancer and everything. Like, body image is everything, and I can't fit a mold. All I can do is be my best self. And there's only so much I can change about myself, but ultimately, like, I love the way I feel when I feel strong. And I know muscle weighs more than fat, right, guys? And I've weighed the most I've ever weighed at this point in my life, and I've probably been the most healthy in my own mind. And that to me is health. And I might be borderline obese for my, BMI range, but I use that as a tool, and I try not to focus too much on numbers, but how strong I want to feel and how healthy I eat on a day-to-day basis, which I can't lie, your girl loves Taco Bell, but I also like eat healthy too. So, like, it's also about perception. And so, yeah, use it as a tool, guys. That's my best.
I want to jump in here real quick, because I kind of want to name that myth that or the common belief here is that it's going to accurately measure health. And you said a lot of things in there. And one thing that I really want to highlight here, you said muscle weighs more than fat. And that is absolutely true. And I know a lot of people just in my circle didn't know that until I explained that to them. Like, we talked a while back in one of our lives about breaking up with the idea of the scale. Right. And that was something that I used to teach people is you're going to gain weight when you're doing the weightlifting, when you are building muscle, and that's okay. And then that's the thing that I want to point out here. We have to account for muscle tone, bone density, gender, age, ethnicity. And this is not what BMI accounts for, all that. It's literally a number to weight, height ratio, right? And your gender.
And when, when you're like where your ancestors are from, like, they've survived everything up to this point to get you right here where you are. And I'm from Swedish, and all those European paintings of all the naked women, and they have my body type. When I'm relaxed, when I'm eating like a sufficient amount of calories, and
yeah.
and that's not what fits the mold, but they probably weigh what I weigh now. And, those are just the most beautiful paintings ever, but you don't see or hear people talking about how, oh, I wish I had that body type, but when you think about it, you're like, that's beautiful. And I'm perfectly great with my curves and my own body, and I can define beautiful at any weight, as long as I'm comfortable in my own skin. So
Yeah,
there.
I really want to say that I have experienced a lot of people who are not comfortable with their own weight and their curves, and the amount, I just want to acknowledge you for a second here, because you said you've overcome your body dysmorphia and stuff. And so I just want to acknowledge that, and that level of awareness that you have to have in order to get to that place. And BMI can be very scary for certain individuals who are so fixated on numbers. So I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge that beautiful piece that you just said. You are perfectly fine with your curves. So thank you for sharing that. So did you want to jump in and say something, Kylie?
Yeah. It's interesting. As I'm sitting here, I'm like, man, I didn't realize that this would be a somewhat uncomfortable episode for me, because I don't think it's ever entered my brain that we have very different body sizes, me compared to the two of you ladies, because we don't compare and we don't do that bullshit in our friendships, right? But in this moment, I could definitely feel myself shrinking, because I am not like the two of you. I've been plus size my entire life. In fact, one of my favorite memes is this tweet. And I'm not going to say it exactly right, so go look it up, but I will provide the Scottish accent for you. So, you don't get that if you just go read it by yourself. But anyway, someone was like talking about dieting or something, and they're like, whenever I try to lose weight, my body is like, dinna fash, love. You're made to withstand the famine and to outlast the English bastards. And so it's like, like that's very much my stock, right? Like I'm not going to be the live, skinny person ever. And that's not a bad thing. There's no judgment in it, right? And and there's no issue with anybody else who's that way, right? But I am 5'9", which is tall for a female presenting person, right? And I have freaking huge bones and stature, and I massage 8 hours a day on my long ass days at the studio. Like I am not just sitting here eating bonbons, right? There's a lot of just solidness to me. And I see it in my son, my oldest son too. He is just shy of 6 feet. We just went to the doctor yesterday. I thought he was already over, but just shy of 6 feet. And he's on the defensive line in the football team, right? Like we are just solid people. And so for me, I don't even know my BMI. I haven't known it for probably 10 years. I don't step on a scale unless I'm at the doctor's office. I go to a naturopath, and so she won't even tell me the number. She has to mark it for insurance. And I think that's probably my biggest thing that I want to kind of myth bust or expose here, is that because it has been adopted within the medical industry, insurance companies force doctors to measure that and use that to diagnose, right? Almost every time I go in with an issue, my naturopath won't say it to me, but she'll, mark that she did, because the first response is, you need to lose weight.
Oh my God, yes.
And so then we're not receiving real treatment for actual things that are happening. And it just continues to create that problem in people's mind that their weight, their size, that defines everything in their life. So
I have a quick story on this weight comment and why that is not the right answer. I had a baby. I was freshly postpartum. I think I was 6 weeks, just had a baby. I was having foot problems. Okay. I go to the podiatrist to have, like, hey, can you help me out here? I'm having some really bad pain in my feet. Can you give me some recommendations? I'm in there with my newborn baby, postpartum mom, and he tells me, your problems will go away if you just lose 20 pounds. He said that to me. And I was
that's not
like,
to you. That my middle fingers are not to you, Kristen. The middle fingers are to the podiatrist.
you guys are gonna love me because you guys know me. I am a challenge boss. I call you out on your shit. And I looked at him square dead in the face and I was like, are you freaking kidding me? That's your answer for me right now? Because I am clearly not dumb. I just had a baby. I know I'm more than my body's used to carrying, but my feet didn't hurt when I had this little booger inside me. So why are my feet hurting now? Oh, let me check. So then we went in. I was just like, I was still like, okay, but then I was like, but respectfully, can you send in a woman? Can you send in your female woman? I was like, I need somebody who's going to give me a little more empathy, because here I am totally not in my normal body, right? And I'm postpartum depression is real, guys. I suffered twice with both my kids. I'm like, that is the last thing a woman needs to freaking hear when she's
Yeah.
trying to get help. Because you think we don't already know that. You think we already don't want to shrink our size. That's not what we need to hear. So I just wanted to like, that was my story. I walked away with confidence. But if you are not that person who has that ability to confront a practitioner in the moment, again, I want to go back, advocating for yourself, respectfully try to get another physician to meet you at where your beliefs are. So I love, Kylie, that you're with a naturopath. I love that. I love those type of people because they're a little more outside the box. And again, pointing out the insurance thing, yes, that's another myth that I would like to point out here, and we're going to call it like I see it, is it predicts disease perfectly. BMI does not.
No.
It does not predict disease
No.
perfectly. It is just a marker, a tool that says you're high risk, you're low risk. And I want to point out another story I have here, because I'm going to have a lot here, guys, because this is my like realm of my life for the last 15 years is
Hold on.
nutrition.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. I was just say, make sure in case somebody's new tuning in, give
Yes.
them before you were a life coach.
Yes, before I was life. Yes, I have my dietetic degree in science, and I was, so you can go and listen to one of my episodes to find out what my background is. But I had a very skinny fit male in my office. He came through and he wanted nutrition advising because he didn't want to go on cholesterol medication because his blood pressure was through the roof, and he was trying to do absolutely everything that he could. On paper, in my medical chart, there was nothing wrong with him. Nothing wrong with him whatsoever. But once we started to unpack his lifestyle, that is when we discovered, okay, we need to add more vegetables. We need to add a little more cardio. We need to add a little bit more fiber. We were able to go ahead and create a lifestyle for him that enabled him to not be on the medication.
Yes.
All of his doctors were saying, well, you need it because it's genetic and it's this and it's that. Well, combo between lifestyle and his doctors putting on my medication, we were able to get his body to a place where he could sustain himself and start tapering off the medication. I'm not saying that's going to work for everybody, but that was his success story.
Yeah.
And he wasn't in my office for BMI. He was in my office for cholesterol.
Right.
He wanted to lower his cholesterol. And that's where I think looking at the whole picture is so important here.
Absolutely. I'll share one quick story. So when I was pregnant with my first, they tested me 3 times for gestational diabetes. So they will routinely test pregnant people at least once for it. But they tested me 3 times because I grew so fucking huge with this child. Seriously, he was 10 pounds, 9 ounces when he was born. So, and for anybody who doesn't know, average baby weight is in like that 8 pound, which, 2 pounds more. No, that's a big deal for a baby. So they tested me 3 times, and each time my doctor was just dumbfounded because they're like, I don't understand. Like, you're gaining so much weight. And then he started looking through my chart and he's like, but your blood pressure has gotten better with each test. And it was like, that was the part where he had to like put it together and be like, even though I was gaining a significant amount of weight, which I did, even though the baby was measuring big, I didn't have gestational diabetes. My blood pressure was improving the longer the pregnancy went on. He was like, oh, I think you actually have like a runner's heart. And I'm in my head, I'm like, well, I don't have a runner's body, and I'm okay with that. But like,
I love that.
So here's this doctor putting these pieces together, and just a perfect example of more weight, higher BMI does not necessarily equate to unhealthy.
It's really interesting. I had gestational diabetes with both of my girls. And I had preeclampsia at the end of my pregnancy with my second child. And mind you, on paper, like my blood pressure, my cholesterol, like my BMI says I'm obese, but everything else on paper, I was healthy. And it's interesting that you're coming in and you're like, I've been overweight my whole life. They didn't make me go 3 times. I went once and that was it. You know, it was like the second time around, I was like, I got diabetes. I don't even need to take the test. And, you know, I was able to do what I do because of my background. And I was able to bypass this test because that test is painful. If you haven't gone through it, and you might have to go through it, it's not eating and the not drinking part and being still. That was hard for me. Anyway, moving on. That's another episode. I'm going to ask you guys now, we named some myths here. Let's move a little bit into the harm that BMI can cause our mental mind, and just like what comes up for you when I say that, like what kind of harm can be caused when you look at BMI?
Oops, technical difficulties. I just want to say, thank y'all for sharing your story and like, you know, the pains of going through gestational diabetes and doctors, and like it's such a miracle just to have a baby and to survive, you know, childbirth. It's that women don't talk about, again, taboo talk. Women don't talk about the birthing process and the pains and the things that go on in your mind, that affect your overall health, right? And I think it's really beautiful that y'all shared your story. And I don't want to come across as too confident, you know, as a person that I don't empathize with you guys. But as a former fitness instructor as well, and I watched women beat themselves up, women who were just about to disappear. And I came into awareness that every time I complained about my body when I was young, or, you know, it's so easy to just pinch stuff that, you know, just shows up, and you're like, oh, you know, you don't allow yourself grace to grow. And you know, once you stop growing, you start dying. And, you know, I'm a big advocate for, you know, physical fitness. But that looks, just because you're into physical fitness doesn't mean you have to look a certain way, or be a certain weight. Your body changes, and certain things you just can't control. But I think the most important thing when it comes to BMI is to control your mind, choose your thoughts. The biggest victory, I think, in my 30s, I can already say, for the last 5, this is hands down of my life, is choosing better thoughts. You know, I gained so much weight in like a year and a half. And I remember when we first met, I remember telling you guys, like, I can't believe I've gained this much weight. And from then to now, I know that I can consciously choose, hey, you can wake up and you can beat yourself up and you can try and you can strive, but you're missing out on the now. And when you stay present and you choose your thoughts daily and you give yourself love, like, you start to emit a healthy level of hormones, right, in your body. And you heal yourself from the inside out. And you never know, like, just not focusing so much about what are they going to think, and am I going to fit in, and I used to be this, and oh my gosh, these jeans, they don't fit anymore, I'm going to have to buy new ones. Like, the process of letting go, it can change your life, and it's not easy work.
So I think, so what I was hearing was a lot of like the mental harm, and I definitely agree with you there, Sydney. It can absolutely end up controlling your thoughts, right? It can definitely just overtake your entire existence, right? I think there's also physical harm that it does, because if you're trying to morph your body into this specific number that is, or range that is acceptable, because it doesn't take into effect or into account, sorry, all of those other pieces, those other metrics for your health, your body may actually become unhealthy by trying to reach this specific range within the BMI. So I think it's a mental harm, it does physical harm, it does emotional harm too. So this
Yeah,
is, and
oxidative.
as we were talking, I was like, oh my God, like I actually realized like I haven't had true body image issues in a solid like 2 or 3 years now. And that's huge for me because for most of my life, it was absolutely front and center. So yeah, just wanted to.
Yeah, oxidative stress is like ultimately what kills us all, I think. And if
Yeah,
when we choose our battles, literally, life is so hard, and the less load that we take off of ourselves that we can, like, I think overall the healthier we'll be because our cortisol levels will be lower. And when they're lower, guess what? Your body's not in fight or flight anymore, and it can relax. And
yeah,
your body
I like,
needs to rest.
yeah, I like the idea of letting go. It's near and dear to my heart, and the foundation for so much of my own personal self-work. And I feel very, very adamant about letting go of the idea of anything defining me in one swift swoop. And the BMI does that, right?
yeah,
And it goes back to looking at the whole picture. Let's zoom out and see the whole picture, right? I'm not going to say that I don't struggle because, yeah, of course I want to be healthier. Of course I want to be thinner. Of course I want to be stronger. Like there's so many things that come, but I think that for me personally, I'm always striving to be the next better version of myself, better than I was yesterday. I want to be better today, right? And that's how I live my life. But I also feel like I don't want to put more pressure. And I like that you brought that up, Cindy. It's like when you're out of this fight or flight stress and control your environment, I need to be this to fit this, to have this expectation. I still am around women that are like that. And I have to excuse myself from those conversations because the energy that it brings me when I'm in those conversations, I want to rescue them. And I know I can't rescue those women. And I understand, like, I'm thinking shame is coming to mind here. This is like, we're shaming ourselves based on the numbers on the scale or how we're feeling in comparison to others.
yeah,
Right. And I'm going to drop our girl Brene Brown here because one of the things that I found most therapeutic for me is the Gifts of Imperfection book. If you have not read it, if you have not listened to it, and you struggle with control, perfectionism, and you're missing out on joys in life, this is the book that woke me up. It really did. There's so many books that woke me up, but this one really was like, she gives you guideposts on actually how to live out that joy that
yeah,
I think is what I'm hearing here, Sydney, is like, we're celebrating the bodies that we're in because we're not putting emphasis on other people's opinions anymore.
yes.
Because we did the hard fucking work to get there, right?
It's hard. It is not easy, and it's
Oh,
something I think is a
Yeah.
lifelong battle that, will happen for all of us. But, recentering and accepting yourself, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that. I like this perspective and I love where these conversations always take us. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. So let's talk about how we break up with it. And I think that we touched a lot about on awareness, right?
hmm,
And I like the idea of what Kylie brought here of like what it actually was made for. So BMI was actually not made to define us, but it was, again, a tool that was used to quickly measure health back in the day, right?
actually, I just remembered something from the history, and I won't get too sidetracked, I promise. I actually think it ended up being used to justify eugenics, as in like genocide and why white supremacy, right? So I'm pretty sure that that's where it actually ended up going. So yeah, unless you're a white European male in the 1830s wanting to be a white supremacist, the BMI is not for you. Okay, go, Kristen.
I didn't know that part. That part was left out of my history book, but you're
Yep.
a little history buff over there. Yeah, and I also think like just I want to encourage and remind everybody to just stop having numbers define you and your worth and on
Yes.
so many levels, right?
Mm.
Yeah. Is there anything else you guys can think of that we talked about as far as what we can do to break up with our relationship with how we view BMI?
I think you need to be kind to yourself and give yourself grace that if this has been your mindset, if this has been where you've been focused, living, etc., it's going to take time to unlearn that. So get yourself some great resources, and that includes some awesome kick-ass friends, most likely other female presenting friends, because they're going to have a different level of understanding where this is concerned. That's part of your resources. And then find something that works for you as far as affirmations to get you back on track, whether it's goals that you want to set, small goals. And I'm not talking about losing weight. I'm talking about like different goals to help you unlearn this. Like, I'm going to focus on learning more about the body for the next
Yes.
3 months instead of how much weight, right? Every time I want to go get on the scale, I'm going to pull up this app and find a fun fact about the body or so, so like find what works for you and your brain to help you in that unlearning process, because it really does take a lot of time.
Yeah, I also want to encourage anybody who is struggling with BMI and letting that number get to them. There's different health markers. If it's your health that you're actually wanting to measure here, and you want to like look at your actual disease ratio, right? Like if you're going to have an increased blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, whatever these things are, there are different things out there. And so I think making sure that you are aware and being that advocate in your healthcare setting is going to help you. And one of the things I want to point out here that I use a lot is your waist circumference. So your hip to a waist ratio circumference. We do a lot of that in the nutrition field because that is, if you're having a lot of abdominal weight around your hips, that you are going to have obviously increased risk for certain diseases. There's metabolic health markers that we can also measure. That is one thing that I wanted to point out here. We want to measure how much you're actually being physically fit, what kind of exercise that you're doing, those types of things that you need to have these conversations with your physician. If you're really concerned about your cholesterol, your blood pressure, and you need to change those, or you're pre-diabetic and you want to get to make sure that you are at your optimal health, right? These are things that you can do and you can advocate for yourself. So I just want to encourage individuals that if you are not sure what resources and tools are out there, there's somebody out there that you can talk to. And you can sometimes even insurances will pay for a dietitian to talk to. And that would be, if you want to go through your medical route, that would be in your right in the United States. That's where my knowledge is. I don't know if that's worldwide or not, but I know that we can have a consultation with somebody like that, especially if you feel like you are at risk and if your health practitioner feels that you are at risk as well. I just wanted to share that little information.
Oh yeah. I think that's so smart. I was like, as you're talking, I'm like, yeah, don't put your head in the sand. Don't just like throw out the scale and be like, fuck this, I'm just gonna live my life. Like, no, be aware, be educated by all means. One other little piece that goes in with education that I realized has been really helpful for me in my journey in unlearning and fixing my body image is call fat what it is, which is adipose, because the word fat has so much judgment in our culture. And so when you're like, oh, I am fat, no, you are a body, you are a soul, you are a person, you have adipose, you have muscles, right? We call muscles by its actual term. Call adipose because it just removes the judgment. And to be clear, we all need adipose. Your brain is made of adipose. It's made of fat. Like, this is why you need fish oil and omegas. Those are healthy fats, right? So try that out and see if it helps.
Yeah. Is there anything, Sydney, that you want to throw in here before we wrap up?
I just want to endorse you in this moment because, not only do you have like all the knowledge, but, I think you are a very, I'm very solid in saying that you are a great safe space that you create for people. Because if you are struggling with this can be a very sensitive subject because I've been there, and if you don't know a lot about your body or how to navigate your health or figure that out, it can be a very scary and real thing to go out and ask health practitioners.
Mhm.
And they're called practitioners because it is a practice, and they aren't always practicing, morally or ethically as they should be. As unfortunately, a lot of us have experience, but like, you have to come in mind that they are biased in some ways. The way they communicate may be different than yours, and there's just so many different factors. So first and foremost, you are brave for doing that, and I just want to let you know, anyone who is listening, and you're not alone, and it's courageous to start this journey, but also, find people. Again, I back Kylie, who will support you, whether it's male or female. I'll have to say that men struggle just as much with body image issue. I don't think it is assigned a gender. This is really just something everyone struggles with, and the more you know, the more you grow, and it's a personal journey, and I believe that you can do it. And it's a lifelong journey, so commit to it and live your best life, whatever that looks like for you and feels like for you. And I hope that you find that. But also, circling back to breaking up with your BMI, my tidbit would be, if you could find something about yourself that's not that aesthetically that you love about yourself, that you've been holding on, or maybe that it's kind of been like, what's pulled you through. Well, I got great skin or great hair or great ass, or my nose is perfect, whatever it is. Or, I have the perfect amount of fat on my body for right now. But if that didn't exist, what else do you have going for you? I would focus on, figuring that out. If you didn't have something about yourself that you love, the way you look or certain aspects, if you didn't have that, or something happened to you, and maybe you were thinking about dating, or what would happen to you in your marriage, what kind of partner would you want to be for someone who lost that? Embody that, you know, create space for yourself to grow. You are more than just a soul. A body. You are a soul. Your body is a vessel, and you have worth. And your worth is not dependent on how you look all the time. So, but
Yeah.
on Liar Liar, that's just like what they say. Oh, that's just something ugly people say. No. I don't know if y'all are like Jim Carrey fans, but anyway. Alrighty, but anyway, I'm done.
Yeah, no, I do want to point out one thing here. Not all doctors take nutrition. So just keep that in mind. I want to remind you of that. I think they need like 1 or 2 classes maximum. Or the minimum, I think is the minimum. And then, pointing out men do have this issue. I can tell you that I have educated more men in my practice than I have women. And I don't know if it's because women are so shamed and that they are less likely to ask for help. And then the women send their husbands to me because they need the help and they won't listen to their wives. Like, I don't really know what the reality of that is, but I just want to point out that I have helped as many men, more men than I have actually helped women. So I just wanted to say that. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, ladies. I appreciate this conversation as always. When we get together, I always enjoy our time together. I want to remind everybody that breaking up with your BMI doesn't mean giving up on your health. It just means getting a little bit more curious and getting a little more creative on the tools and resources that we utilize to define what our health actually is.
If you found yourself nodding along and thinking, yes, but how? That's where we come in. We're not just your hosts, we're life coaches here to support your growth. Sydney supports people reclaiming their worth beyond performance and perfection. Kylie coaches unconventional humans navigating the hard, beautiful work of becoming themselves. And I'm Kristen. I help people remember who they are, rebuild confidence, and unlock the potential they've had all along. You'll find links to connect with us, learn more, or apply to work together in the show notes. We'd love to meet you right where you are. Be sure to subscribe or follow, depending on your platform, so you never miss the permission slip you didn't know you needed. Whether you're looking for support, have a topic you want us to unpack, or just need to drop a comment, boring or otherwise, no judgments found here, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time.